Welcome to episode 1
Yes.
of our new show. She is Lais, and I am the coach, and that is the name of our show.
First of all, if there's ever been a time for personal bubble, this is it.
We will always stay true to what we do. What you're doing is going to get you to the next place.
Right.
Throw the list away. It's only a matter of time before you cave.
You can look way better than you used to.
Such a great experience.
Well, like it knows everything you've given.
Shown curiosity. What if it actually works?
I've been chopped out como persona.
100%.
An extra vitamin.
City right now. Sometimes it is a member.
Welcome, everybody. Peace out, everybody. Welcome, everybody, to Lais and The Coach. Today, we have a special guest. And this particular episode is one that we've looked forward to for a long time because Lais and I have been wanting to go to the Fitness Atlantic show, which Brian is the promoter of, for years. And every year something would come up where we couldn't go. And finally this year we were like, we are going to the show no matter what. We want to see what's going on. And we were blown away.
Yeah.
Blown away. And the entire time that we were there, all we kept talking about was next year when we come back, we've got to bring more people with us.
And I can't believe we didn't come sooner.
And I can't believe we didn't come sooner. So without further ado, Brian, thank you for coming on the show. And today we are going to talk about everything that's going on at Fitness Atlantic. But before we do, how did you get started in all of this?
Okay, thanks for having me. My dad really got me involved in this. He was just a workout guy. He didn't compete competitively or anything like that. He was a zookeeper, but he always worked out. He had a barn at his job at the zoo, and we were always working out and doing a lot. Mostly did like upper body stuff. He had the big plastic dumbbells and everything in his barn. So we were doing he had boxes he'd put down. You do push-ups on them, and then you're doing, your bench press with the dumbbells. And he loved his triceps. He was always doing tricep over the head exercise. So, he started it. He had some muscle and fitness magazines, once in a while, laying around. So you would look at that. And then we'd start going to gyms. And at that period of time, there were some Bally's Fitnesses around and very small mom and pop gyms. So we started going to one called Trumbull Workout Center. We would just pay day passes and go in, and it would be like him and his coworker with me. I was still in high school, and right around the time I would turn 16, have my driver's license, there was a Gold's Gym in Milford opened up. It was about 20 minutes from where I live, and we all started going after school. So it'd be me and all my friends with my dad and some of his friends, and we would always just go to this Gold's Gym, and we'd be there till 2-3 hours. A lot of times still doing the wrong workouts because we really didn't do legs. We were still doing my dad's workout routine.
Right.
So we did that for a while, and after I graduated high school, I started working in the trades. I was actually a plumber, so I was doing that, and then became laid off because the market turned, and the gym being my hobby, there was a new one opening up near me, a World Gym in Trumbull, which was some of the same ownership, so they knew me. So I took this job as a part-time thing, or like a stepping area until something else came up with the plumbing, and I just never wanted to go back into the trades. I just wanted to stay doing that. So then we started getting these little bodybuilding teams going, and I wanted to train for a show because me and my dad had gone to a couple of them and watched them, and it was natural bodybuilding or some natural shows local. And what happened was your first one's the hardest one because you want to start training for a show, but there's a lot of hesitation and there's this lack of confidence about doing it. And there was a professional wrestler, Paul Roma. He was around where I lived, and he was at the gym. He's like, you should just do it, just do a show. You can do a show. And then a guy named Claudio Mancuso he was a former Mr. Connecticut, and he told me he would help me. So he started giving me a diet. And he'd be like, I'll help you. I'm not going to charge you for it. But if you don't listen to me, I'm no longer going to help you. So that was so I started training for it. And I was 20, just about turned 21. And then my younger brother wanted to do the same show. So he ended up getting a trainer guy from the gym too, different guy. And we both ended up doing the show. At first it was a little weird because I was like, I thought it'd be like my thing, you know, and,
Right.
you know, so he jumped in it too. And, you know, he was in the teenage division. So
Okay.
I was in the men's open division, and it was
Wow.
by heights. So I was in the tall class, and there were like 8 guys in mine, and they were all much older than me, and they've all had many more years of doing shows. I ended up getting second place. And
Wow.
yeah, it was pretty good. My brother ends up winning. So we had these wooden trophies with like the tops on them, you know, plastic tops with a bodybuilder photo pose.
Right.
And his won't even fit in the car. It's a 6-foot trophy. I had to take it apart to get it home, you know? And, you know, from there, a lot of people just never understood, like when I would say, oh, you did the show. And yeah, I did it. And so did my brother Richie. And he's like, how'd you do? Well, I got second. How'd Richie do? Well, he won. Oh, he beat you? Like, he beat you? And I'm like, no, we were in different things. So I just at that point realized, like, for one, it was AAU show. I didn't even know what it stood for. I was like, what does AAU mean? It's, you know, then you after a while through the years, you find out a little bit more. It's Amateur Athletic Union. But I had no idea on sanctions and what they meant, whether it was MPC or, you know, AAU. Didn't matter. It was just pick this show because it was the one known as, like, this is the one everybody does as their first show.
Right.
And, you know, it was AAU Milford County. There's not even a county called Milford County. It's just made up that name. And then I did AAU Mr. Connecticut, and then I did an MPC Connecticut State, and well, no, it was actually the Iron Classic. It was called. So, and after doing all of those shows is when the promoter Fred Yale contacted me, called me at home, and he asked me if I wanted to take it over because I sold so many tickets, you know, into all the shows. So it wasn't just the first show. It was like each show I was selling a lot of tickets. But we had a really good team at the World Gym I worked, and everybody was excited to go. So, and I sold them like stag tickets. I'd be like, you got to buy a ticket. You got to buy a ticket, you know? So I would call them up and be like, hey, Fred, I need 100 tickets. It's like 100 tickets.
Wow.
Like, you know,
That's
then
awesome.
like, I need more tickets. So he called me because what happened was he wanted to focus on the AAU Junior Olympic Games.
Okay.
For like everything the AAU was doing was teenage focused, and physique, they called it. They didn't call it bodybuilding, they called it physique. And it was the only sport that was really all adults. There weren't many. So Fred, you know, wanted to focus on trying to find teenagers to do bodybuilding. I thought it was a little weird, but I was like, okay, you do your thing. Yeah. And, you know, so he did it for a couple of years. And then what happened was AAU just ended up just removing physique altogether because of the point of it was all adults. And a lot of it was, you know, always steroid testing and then having problems with, even though you steroid test, somebody failed. What do you do about that? And how do you handle all that? And, you know, so I was running those AAU shows for a few years with Fred, and he was still the announcer. So everybody still thought it was Fred's show, even though I was behind the scenes. It was all me. I was doing all the work, and I started training people for free and having posing workshops. So that's how that's how I started getting the numbers to go up. So when I first took it over, there were only 20 people in the AAU Mr. Connecticut. And after a few years, you know, we had 60 people in it, and you had to be a Connecticut state resident based on the AAU rules, because that's just how it was. Nobody really. They did send a representative to every show who took the membership money and gave me
Okay.
a AU card. So I was always to Fred. I'm like, well, why are we doing this with the AAU? Why do we need to involve them? And he's like, well, because the AAU was a not-for-profit, and it helped us get a discount on the venue.
Got it.
And it covered the insurance by doing it. So we're like, okay, but none of the people went from our Mr. Connecticut really to the Mr. America. It was just would come in, they'd do the show locally, and they'd pick another local show. It wasn't back then. People did not get on a plane and go travel to a show. It was just.
It was all local at the local level.
Everyone I knew was all local. Maybe there were a handful of people that I wasn't associated with or knew, because there was this thing at the time. Like, now I was involved in running these AAU shows that I really didn't know anybody from AAU. It was just, okay, we're doing this for the because of it's just the way the business is, and this is just what was given to me. But years before that, there was this thing where there was only AAU. They were the first ones to do physique. They were the first ones to do it. And then MPC wasn't around. There was just IFBB. So,
Okay.
but a little bit before my time, there was this MPC and AAU thing that kind of, like, everybody from the AAU, a lot of them went over to MPC. So from what I have heard and what I gather on this is that, like, the Weeders would come, Joe Weeder would come in and be like, hey, AAU, we'll take all of your winners and make a pro division called the IFBB. So like, yeah, take
Got it.
like, we can't use them. We're amateur athletic union. We can't do anything with them. So the pro division was started first. And then years down the road, they started the amateur division with the MPC. When that happened, a lot of these AAU people left. So that's why, that was before my time. I didn't really know about it, but the guy, Fred, who gave me the show, was involved with all of that, because most of the people he was involved with were former AAU people that then left and went to the MPC. So, yeah, I ran that show. And then Fred, the Junior Olympic thing didn't work out. He wanted to get back involved into run the show more like it was his. And I met him at the diner and I said, Fred, you announced the show was mine. You gave it to me. Now you want to bring in AAU judges to the show that I don't know. And that money has to come out of the show money. And it doesn't make any sense to me. And it was because he was pushing for that Junior Olympic game connection. And I'm like, I think I'm done. Like, you take it back. Because it's you have the AAU connection. I don't know them. You get the schools. You're the host. I'm just the guy doing all the work behind the scenes. And I took a year off and then didn't do anything. And then I got involved in helping this guy, CJ Bouchard, run an ANBC show. They were an all-natural organization out of Boston. There was a guy that owned them called Bob Gormley. And so I helped. There was a show at East Haven High School, and I went around with posters. I drove around all the gyms, had a few people, and I guest posed at that show because I started just sort of prepping to get in shape again. So my goal at that point was to run a Muscle Mania show, Muscle Mania Fitness America. So I had reached out. I took all of my previous AAU stuff that I had, and because I had this bodybuilder Skip LaCour guest pose at my show one time.
Yes,
on the flyer and everything. So, which that's another story I could tell you about. Skip called me up one night, woke me up because he was in California. He's like, "I'm on your flyer. I can't do that show." And I'm like,
oh my god!
So there's a whole Twin Lab connection. We had Twin Lab as a sponsor, so he ended up coming, and so I had this really cool, like, threefold brochures and things like that, and I sent them out. Fitness America was on ESPN. ESPN2 was on late at night. I sent out my VHS tapes of my shows with Skip and the posters, and I ended up talking to a guy named Robin Chang, and Robin called me back and said, we normally do sanction out Fitness America, but it's normally held with a natural bodybuilding show like the AMBC shows. So I go, yeah, but I really want the Muscle Mania. I want to run one of those. And because they had a nice stage, they had cool lights. It was a once a year show for TV. And it kind of piggybacked Fitness America, because Fitness America was the thing that got them onto ESPN. But the Muscle Mania, once you got there, realized there were a lot more contestants in the Muscle Mania show, and a lot of the audience had to do with the Muscle Mania. But for like mainstream TV, like ESPN, ESPN2, they really just wanted that show, Fitness America Pageant, which was kind of a break off, like a new idea of Miss Fitness, because Miss Fitness was on TV first. And so it was on TV. I really wanted to be part of that, especially with the lights, the stage, the way they were doing it, the fact it was on TV. They had all the major sponsors. They had Labrada, they had Twin Lab, they had all of these. It was just, to me, like the next level of something that was much larger than anything that was very, very local grassroots to what I was doing before. So they liked all my material. Robin Chang called me up and said, yeah, you can do it, and we're going to sanction you the Muscle Mania show. So in 1999, well, I tried to do it in 1998, but it was just too close. So I helped out at the AMBC show, and then I guest posed at that, and then I flew out to California and I competed in the Muscle Mania show at the end of 1998. So
Okay.
So I was, there not just to watch, but to like participate in it. And all I wanted to do was get a picture on the stage of me. Like, it wasn't about like, oh, I'm going to go there and win it. It was like, no, I want to go and get a picture of me, because I could blow this up and really market to everybody and get them excited. And I was lucky enough just to place 5th place. So I was able, because you had to make top 5 to do your routine too. So I was lucky enough to do that. I probably would have placed higher if I didn't listen to other people and screw up my diet and do this whole sodium load deplete thing. The guy, Bob Gormley from the AMBC show that I guest posed at, he was a judge at Muscle Mania Worlds, right? So, and then I also knew Ron Coleman Alcatraz, the guy from Twin Lab. They were both judges. I was like, what did you do? Skip before, and I knew Skip. So Skip was this expert at the sodium loading thing, right? And he's like, you didn't do it right. But not only that, like, I didn't realize that the prejudging was on a Friday and not on a Saturday. So I definitely timed it way, way wrong. I was like a water balloon. My friend, and there was no tanning services. There was none of that stuff. So my friend Rob worked for a supplement company. He was from Connecticut. He moved out to California. He worked for a supplement company called Gen, and he's helping me put on the Protan. He's like, you don't have any cuts in your body. And 4 weeks ago, people are like, you can't hold that. You can't hold that condition. I looked like the best I ever did when I was guest posing, and I didn't do anything really. I just lowered my salt and upped my carbs, and I went out there and I had veins everywhere, and it was like, this is the best I looked. And then all that, just everybody getting in my head being like, you can't hold it that long. You're not going to be able to do this. You're going to have to sodium load. You got to do this. And so I went like a week without eating carbs, and then I did I took a salt shaker full of salt every day and used the whole thing.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Along with soy salt.
Wow.
And just eating turkey. Like, it's like, oh, right? And then I drank up to 8 gallons of water. And it was the dumbest thing ever.
In a day?
Yeah, on my flight to California, Redondo Beach. I'm going.
Wow.
I'm like so bloated.
Oh my God, I would die.
Like, this is the most counterproductive thing you could ever think about doing.
You were committed.
It's so dumb. So it ended up where at that point, when the water comes out of you, you're just sitting on the toilet like that Jim Carrey, remember that movie?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You're just like, no. and you're all tanned up and you're like, I need a shower. I'm like, I can't do this.
Oh my
I don't know how
gosh.
people do the sodium load thing. Is the dumbest thing. And then I'd be like backstage, and there was like Tito Raymond was there, and he was a big star at the time. And I'm like, Tito, do you sodium load? He goes, no.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm in pain thinking about it.
You know, so sometimes I hear these stories about what people do, and I'm like, you know, I just take my experience from like, my brother wins first, I get second. It's my first show ever. I'm like, how do I get explain it to everybody? You know, so from there I started, like when I was running shows, I'd put these little picture frames on these trophies that we had. You know, they're all Nielsen's, Anderson statues, being the jacked up guys, and then a little wood frame, and I'd put a little frame in there so you can just take your picture and just slide it in, so that when you leave it at the gym, you're just like, it's not just about the placing, it's about, look at my picture.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we didn't have all this social media back then, you know, like the internet was barely going. It was the dial up, you know, you had a website was just one page, and that was all it was. And so for us, it was more about that. Or a lot of the gyms had wall of fames too. You'd put up your picture in the wall of fame, and it'd be like this big
Right.
wall of frames.
Yeah.
So there were things like that that were better than just people bringing in their trophies and just focused on like what place they did. And that was from my experience too, you know, and letting too many people get in your head about like what you need to do without understanding anything. You know, there was so many people I would see it. People would talk people out of doing shows because they look at them and go, yeah, you're not going to be ready. Like, how you get somebody weeks out and tell them you're not going to be ready. And it would happen all the time. And I'd be like, you know, they think it's all with good intentions too. They're like, you know, they go up to somebody and go, you know, yeah, I don't think you'll be ready. Just like they think they're helping that person so much, and all they do is just get in their head, mess them up real bad, and they
need a coach.
We say it all the time. We say it all the time.
Yeah, they back out of, they put all, I would train. There was one time, I remember this one guy, I trained him all the way up to 2 weeks before the show. He looked incredible. And then I didn't see him. He just didn't show up. And this is just a local gym, just this guy, Bob Sirocco. I was like, where is this guy? What happened to him? And I'm like, dude, what's up? And he's like, after the show happened, he didn't even come to the show. He's just like, yeah, no, I just gave up. And he goes, I'm just like, you went all the time, you know, all that time. You know, so it's, you know, for a lot of people understand it's what you did from one show to the next. And, you know, for me, I did from one show to the next, I always did a bigger, better show. And my placings actually weren't always in line with that. Like I would place second in my first show. The next show I had like 2 divisions I was in, because I was still in a junior class or something. And then I was in like an open class, and I'd get a third and a third. And then like the next show, maybe a second or third or something, you know, and then fly all the way out to California and get a 5th. But, you know, it's like you just did a huge show. I mean, there were 18 guys in the class I did when I was in California to get, you know, 5th place in that, after doing all that screwed up everything I did in my diet, you know. And they're like, you probably would have got 3rd or 2nd.
Wow.
All right, whatever. I was in the same class, me and this guy Freddie Smalls, if you ever look him up.
Yeah, I know Freddie Smalls.
Yeah, Delaware.
Yeah, but I think it's like, that's what we usually say. Like you said it before, you were going to go do that show and you were going to use your stage pictures to promote the next thing. It's like there's always got to be, the show is something that we tell our people to use as the thing that inspires them to move on to the next thing. You want to get in shape. Unfortunately, you know, booking a vacation isn't enough, right? To get in that kind of shape. Yeah. You're not going to commit to diet and training if you booked a 7-day cruise. Like you'd never cancel your cruise if you didn't diet, right? But for a show, if you are using it for you, and then that becomes the date, the goal date, the timeline, the deadline, you know, it is inspiring enough to keep moving forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think my first show, that's why I sold so many tickets. I was like, you know, if I have that many people coming, I'm not backing out. I'm not going to back out. There's people that don't buy tickets. And the first question, when's the last day I can sign up? I'm like, it's the worst question. You'll never get in 100% shape. You want to know the last day? Like, what's the late fee? I don't care what the late fee is. What's the last day I can enter? And I'm like, whoa.
Well, you're trying to see if you're even going to do it, right?
Yeah.
Those are the, like,
it's the wrong question to start anything. We say that all the time, even with coaching, when people are like, what's the cancellation policy? It's like, wow, like you haven't even started. You already want to cancel? It's not a good idea for you.
Yeah. And what
Okay,
you're
so
saying
then-
too is I want to tell another story real fast. Because you got me thinking about that. There were two guys locally. One guy, Pete, and another guy, Carlos. And Carlos was always around, and he was more of a showman, right? Like he had an older Mercedes, but his license plate said Mr. USA. So he'd pull up to your gym as Mr. USA on his license plate. He wore a necklace with the little guy flexing. His jacket said Mr. USA on the back. He guest posed at a bunch of my AAU shows. He was always guest posing and putting himself out there. He stayed very close to contest shape all the time. He was a littler guy. Then there was a guy, Pete. And Pete was more like, he looked like the guy from the Gold's Gym symbol, the original guy, just the bald-headed guy with the bandana. And he'd be in the gym every day, covered up completely. You never really knew what he looked like, but you knew he was massive. And Carlos would always have like a free gym membership. He was always selling belts and wrist wraps. So like, but he had a full-time job. I think he was at an airport or something. He had a job locally, but he was in the newspaper. So when we would do like a guest poser, we would go to the local paper and get him to do a story on the guest poser. So Carlo always had a write-up in the paper and his picture in the paper and everything. So, you know, come to find out that later on, it's told to me like, did you know that they were both in the same contest? And what do you mean? They're like, Pete won the overall Mr. USA. Carlo just won his class in the Mr. USA. But he rode that thing as far as he could take it. And it's just, you know, and when Pete made a comeback, he did my show in, I believe it was 2000. He did the Muscle Mania show with me. And I helped him out a little bit on just getting him up to, you know, the speed on how things had changed, his posing and getting some better music and all that. And he's just like, the newspapers won't do an article on me, or there's always this like thing, but it was like, you're just a little quiet about it, you know, you're not really putting yourself out there in the same way as this other guy did, you know? So, yeah, just some people can take that title and just really, they push it pretty far. Like they get
everyone is so different, right?
And it's the same thing like these days on social media, right?
Yes.
Somebody will do, you know, a photo shoot in their garage and they will blast it, and you would think that they were on the cover of Vogue, and some people that actually do stuff that won't even talk about it.
Yeah.
They're afraid to post.
Yeah.
So you stepped on stage in 98 at the Muscle Mania, and then in 99 is when you ran your first Muscle Mania show.
But I called it Fitness Atlantic.
There we go.
Okay.
That's where I'm trying to get to. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
So walk
Yeah, I
us
called it Fitness Atlantic. I was going to build a website. And so I had to decide on a domain name. And I'm like, do I want anything in here with muscle? So I don't know. I really wanted to do something that was focused more on the fitness side. So, you know, we didn't have bikini then. Figure wasn't around either. It was just, if it was for females, it was either female bodybuilding, which we had, or fitness. So I just knew that you had to focus at fitness. You know, so I named it fitnessatlantic.com for the domain name. And from there, it was just kind of like building on that. And we did that for 10 years, doing Fitness and Muscle Mania. And we would get about, on average, usually about 40 women in the fitness class. And the first year we did bikini. It's probably about 8 years into it or so, maybe 6 years into it or so. We had 2 the first year we did it. There were only 2 women in bikini.
Wow.
And you know, the idea of bikini was just no routine, but our bikini still had different category, you know, different parts of it. It had a sportswear round, which is where you start seeing the, you know, you'd see the girls come out in their bikini, do their stage walk, but then in their second round, they would do sportswear. So they would come out sometimes in like a baseball outfit or a football, like it had a theme to it.
Okay.
But it wasn't the wings of the diva stuff now, but it was just like at the beginning stages of kind of going to that level. So we, but I would get a lot of females in the show. So that was really what my focus was at that time, to build it up. We had 2 judging panels as well. So we would have a judging panel that was for just the bikini and fitness. And then we'd have a separate panel. So there was like 12 judges. We'd have, you know,
Wow.
some of these judges would step away, and then the bodybuilding judges would come in and just judge the bodybuilding part of the show.
Wow.
So there was always this very clear distinction between criteria and sticking to it, not just with having criteria, but knowing even if I had criteria and left the bodybuilding panel there, the outcome would be very different on the fitness winners of who was there. The other part about doing fitness, right, is that they always end the show in their bikinis and they're standing there with their flowers. There was an interview round as well, if they're the top 5, but nobody remembers that just about an hour ago in the show, you just watched all these 2-minute routines. And then what happens is you end up with people on stage and they go, but look, it's like, yeah, but you forgot there's a whole nother 2-minute routine, which has so much to do with that score.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So it was a lot of tabulation in these type of scores, because you'd have like their 2-minute fitness routine, their bikini walk, and then the top 5 would have an interview, which also had to be calculated into that type of thing. So that has a lot to do with how we look at our criteria in the shows with currently how we do it now. So it was 14 years ago that I left the, actually 15 years ago, I left the Fitness America Muscle Mania. I did an independent show just on my own. And from there, a lot of the coaches kind of left me because they didn't know what they wanted to do. They kind of wanted to stick with the Fitness America person. And, you know, a lot of the reason we left, because just at the national level, how the scores were done, we didn't like how, we didn't agree with something that happened there. So we went and just did an independent show. And then Paul was running a lot of stuff on MySpace. So I was following him for a while, and I went independent, and people still wanted that next level. They wanted something else. Like when they did Fitness America, they were able to go to nationals. At that time, the TV, the ESPN thing just went away. So it wasn't what I had gotten used to. And the whole thing about why I wanted to be part of that, it was no longer televised. So, you know, a lot of that happened like really right after like September 11th. Everything changed in the industry. And so all the shows, all the sponsors were gone. So all the TV shows ended. So with that, I saw the shows, just the quality of nationals just kind of becoming like every other regional show. And I'm like, this does not feel special to me. But you didn't know what to do next, right? So I went and ran an independent show. A lot of the coaches were like, we're going to stick with this. We're going to stick with him. Okay. So now I had to restart myself. And then I called out to Paul, and it was like yesterday was 14 years ago. I drove to Ottawa, Canada, got in my car and took the bricks with me because he was my announcer. He started with me. I actually trained him in 2001 for a show, for my show.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so he jumped in the car with me, and we left at 2 a.m. and we drove into Canada. First time I ever was in Canada. And we went to his show. It was called the Montreal, but it was really in Ottawa. It was at a beautiful casino. He did great lights. It was just, we sat and talked a lot. And then the following year is when I really became part of the WBFF. So we were the first one in the United States to be WBFF. Micah and Diane also did one that was in Kansas, because they were involved.
Yes, remember they were at the.
They were within the first show, the first year, and but theirs was a little different because kind of Paul and Allison really kind of did a lot of things with that. They just were more about coaching and stuff like that. Where mine, I did, they never really. Allison came the first year, so she was here one of the years, and then after that, we just kind of do our thing, and they leave us alone. They just trust us to kind of just.
And you have the experience too,
Right.
so it's just a matter of like kind of marrying the worlds, two worlds, your world and their world.
Yeah.
So
when we started, a lot of people didn't know, like a lot of people from Fitness America moving them over to WBFF, they would look at these videos and go, that's way too sexy. Because they
saw it now.
So it was a lot of hesitation, and eventually everybody started coming over because like Lindsay Messina won the world. She had come from my show. So a lot of girls back then, they always wanted to be on the cover of Oxygen. So we always had a lot of girls from my show that were on covers of Oxygen. I had this guy, Mo Mendez, that was one of my bodybuilding champions. I had him on a lot of covers and reached out to a lot of people. He was on 2 covers of Muscle Fitness, almost back to back. Almost every single magazine, from Reps and all the other magazines, he was on multiple covers. So a lot of times you'd come to my show and I'd blow up the covers and put them on like easels. So you'd walk in and go, oh, that was everybody's dream to be on the cover of a magazine. And, we would help that get done for people. And,
that I'll say, it's really incredible, like your passion for it, because it's so apparent, not only when talking to you, but when being at the show. I think that that's one of the things that makes it so special is like, you want, like what you were saying about the trophy and putting the pictures in it, right? It's like, as a competitor, but even as a show promoter and somebody that runs shows, it's like, it is important for that experience. And I think a lot of times that is missed in a lot of different federations and a lot of different shows in general. That's something that you do very well, which is, I want to make these videos and I want to blow up these covers and I want to give people a moment to have their special moment. And, it's like, it does make such a big difference, which is why I think we were also so blown
because
away.
it's what we're telling people, right? Like the person wanting to get on stage isn't reaching out to the promoter directly. They're reaching out to the coach, say, hey, I'm thinking about, and we're saying this is going to be great because we've gone to a show and we see what it can do. But if it doesn't fulfill itself, right, then it could leave a little bit of a void, or that empty feeling. So it's so great to hear all of the things or how it even evolved, right? Like, because the details matter.
And even like what you said, you left, the one partnership because it didn't really feel right anymore. And it's like, when it's that first versus business first is such a great recipe for success, because it's like you're actually caring about what you're doing and the people you're doing it for, instead of like, does this make business sense? Should I just do this because this is what it's like, it's so refreshing.
Yeah, it has to, you have to have a right feeling about what is going on especially when these things happen. Like that was a very hard transition for me to leave one and move to the next, especially when at that time we had really one coach that was kind of the beginning person of this. There was Kathy Savage out of Boston. She originally had 2 contestants for fitness, and I was introduced to her by this guy Todd Gansey, who used to make like a lot of music for the fitness girls, and he did a lot of the music for the professional bodybuilders like Jay Cutler. And they came to my show, and actually Todd came through Nancy Andrews, who runs the IMBF stuff, and they were judges. Well, Nancy was a judge. She brought Todd, and then I ended up becoming friends with Todd. He ended up being my photographer for many years. But Kathy's group, the Savage Girls, just took over. I mean, there were over 100 of them, and
I love that name.
yeah. Well, yeah. Here's the thing. I was very close and friendly, and it really made up a lot of the show. But at the same time, it would have been nice to have more coaches and not just one, because that's
Right.
the thing. A lot of people do feel like there's a big takeover, or when they see some coaches getting any type of favoritism, they just don't feel like, as good as you are at and listen, people never knew the behind the scenes, that if one of her girls didn't win, I'm getting emails or texts saying, what happened over here with this person. There was one girl from Canada came in one year, Vanda, and she just was like an Olympic level gymnast, and just like she looked like she came right out of the Matrix going across the stage. You're like, whoa, what happened? And they thought I planted the girl and brought her in on purpose. And I'm like, why would I do that? How does that help me at all when I have all local girls and have somebody come in that's like crazy? So and then I remember Todd was the photographer then, and we would always talk about the show afterwards, and he always loved the fact of how he saw it too, because he was involved in bodybuilding for so many years at such a different level. And the guy, Robin Chang, who was part of the Fitness America stuff, he went on to then run the Olympia for a bunch of years too. So when I was going to leave, I remember calling Robin and being like, hey, you left. Well, what do you think I should do? Definitely want to leave Fitness America. He's like, man, you would be such a good NPC promoter. He goes, imagine one of your guys could be Mr. Olympia. I go, Robert, I don't want to do that to anybody. I go, after all these years, focus on all the girls and stuff. I said, I see myself more affiliated with Paul, like with the WBFF, because it's more what I see. It's the showmanship, it's the lights, it's
Costumes.
Yeah, and I've always had great conversations with Paul, so I've never had any problem with that. And I think that he always wants to do the same thing when it comes to putting on a show and the lights and taking it to that next level. And this year was tough too, because a lot of people just moving all around or whatever they want to do, and that's just, I want to just stick with it, because I didn't have any issues of anything that happened federation wise, and
Right.
I didn't have any issues with Paul. So it was like, even if people left me, I just think long term of what's the best decision long term to do. And I was like, I just gotta stay with this. So the helpful thing is, we went down to Atlantic City, we met you guys, and where I said, let me have a pro division in the show, so that locally people just didn't have to travel that far, and I think it was really nice the way we did it.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Now let me, before we skip to that,
I know that was next on our list.
right, but you said something that I think that has to be addressed, which is the impression that sometimes coaches and even competitors have, that the promoter somehow is going to benefit from one person or another one winning, is such a false,
I know.
like, I don't know where it started, but like, do you have any idea, or you as a promoter, like, does it matter to you on your side who wins or what?
You got to remember, this goes back to, this has to do with it's part of the industry, right? There's there's people that would make comments, like Jim Mannion made a comment many years ago, and it's not directly to me, but he made someone else, and said the only happy people in this sport are the winners. So
It's so true.
I mean, that comes from him. Or how about the stories you look at when Arnold was competing and winning, and then took a year off and then came back and won, and they're like, he didn't deserve to win that show. And there's so many people that will tell you that he didn't deserve to win that show. You know, and even this last year's Mr. Olympia, where the guy from Iran that was really dialed in, and everybody's like, hey, he should have won, but the other person, you know, when it's bodybuilding, it's more cut and dry. It's easier to look at. It's closer to people running a race and one person reaches a finish line first.
Right.
But even if it comes to, and someone said this years, you know, to me, is even when it comes to like figure skating, there's criteria, right? So they have to go through all these parts about it, and that's where people say it's like more of a personal opinion on the judges to sit down and you know, so people do say that it's like you know, has to do with your judging panel and the people on your panel. But I also think if you really educate your judges on the criteria and stick to that. But no, there's really there's no benefit in bringing somebody in to win a show and just kind of give it to them over another person, you know?
Yeah.
You know, again, I think of things long term, so I'm not always like thinking about like just like a 1 year being done with it. It's always about like, how is this going to help next year?
Mm-hmm.
And we used to say back in the day when we did bodybuilding shows, I was taught this too. They go, you know, you always have one big year and then next year's smaller and then next year's bigger again. And that's just how it goes, because people come to the show and go, you know, it's really competitive, and they go, I'm not doing this. And then next year they sit in the audience and go, I should have did it. And then they just go back the next year.
Yeah.
So I think it's universal through the whole industry that you're always going to find that people are going to say that, you know, the judges didn't know what they were doing, or that there were favoritism for some reason. It's so easy just to say that and just be like, and I've never felt that way. I've done this myself, and I've never left the show and said I shouldn't have placed where I placed. Like, I always knew I placed exactly where I placed, even when I screwed up my diet majorly and got, you know, felt like I was lucky with a 5th place, you know. And it was always more to me about like, did I get better each show? Can I see the progress from one show to the next, and did I get better? And a lot of it has to do with who shows up that year, you know. It's not people, you know, like. And to me, I've always wanted my show to be so good that people will wait one more year and come back again, so that they have a really good comparison. Like, hey, if it's the same show and I'm in the same show and I do it year over year, am I getting better year over year? Where there's some coaches that will not have that philosophy about that. And what they will do is be like, okay, we're gonna find you a smaller show so that you can get that pro card in the smaller show. But you know, so it was always like around here to be like, well, Fitness Atlantic's the hard one. It's a good show. You really know how competitive you'll be, but you can go to New York, or you can go to this one, or you can go to that one, and you can get your pro card a lot easier. But then it's like, what is your success going to be as a pro?
Right, because then once you get your pro card, then you gotta go up against pros. Like,
yeah, you know,
People
like,
never think about that. Everybody wants the pro card, but nobody realizes that means you're gonna go against pros now.
I always say it's the retirement card. It's like it's like, I got the pro card, now they're done, you know.
It's like you're on top, and then it's almost like you're starting over again, you know.
Yeah, they just stop. You just don't see them that much, you know. So that's you know, we try to talk about how long people do it with natural bodybuilding. When I ran that, and I was always running my website and building up my website and trying to be on the first page of Google for natural bodybuilding, and I was. We put up the bios all the time, and we'd do things. It was always hard because you have music in the background, so you're always like, how do we do this? Because on my YouTube channel, you can't really monetize a YouTube channel if you're showing posing routines that have music in the background. You have to kind of figure out how to do that. But we used to always bring an interviewer backstage and interview all the contestants and build up this YouTube channel. And a lot of the contestants would come back as bodybuilders year over year over year. It was like it became part of like what you did, like playing a sport, like going to play golf or doing something else. Where
Right.
sometimes with like Diva Fitness a little bit more like you got to put a little bit more, have a little bit more muscle on you. But bikini, you might only see people that do 2 years or something, you know, and they do
Wow.
within
Yeah.
2 years, they do a few more shows and then they're on to the next thing. So you're always trying to find more and more people, you know. So, you know, like we run workshops, you know, but we do charge for the workshops when people come down because we do a split with the gym owner. You know, but I did a lot of ebook marketing too for a while. So I would have
Right.
them download like a free report and then sort of get on that email list to sort of be introduced to this. Because
Absolutely.
until people meet a coach that's going to be like, same for myself, like I'll help you, but you have to listen to me and you have to do this. And, you know, before, you know, you got to pick the show to enter and do all that. I mean, when I entered the show back in the day, we'd have to go and get a money order to send in a physical entry form to the promoter. So there was no, you're not getting your money back. You're not stopping.
Right.
Yeah.
Imagine nowadays somebody having to go get a money order and physically do something when everybody just wants to click.
So inconvenient.
You know, like but you know, one of the things that we really enjoyed at the show that we've seen year in, year out is the transformation category. Like, I think that you
It's our
do
favorite.
an outstanding job at it, but it's one of our favorite categories across the board.
At any show.
At any show, right? We love the transformation because we're about the process and the journey,
The
and
experience.
to see that many people show up Friday night, you know, for that. Like, how did that start? How did, you know, you create a night just for that?
Massive.
Well, I pitched it to Paul about transformation because it was really, he's really the person that started doing the giant screen in back of the stage. So, you know, he's the one that did that with the projector. Nobody else was doing that. He was the first one. And a lot of it was a lot of the same loop. So you'd go and sit through on his show. I'm like, man, pictures, this looks great. But if I'm sitting this thing for 3 hours watching the same loop over and over. So I have always been a huge fan of Bill Phillips and Body for Life.
Mm-hmm.
Love Body for Life. So especially it had everything to do with what I was doing as promoting natural bodybuilding. I didn't know much about the whole steroid side of things. We did some really great drug testing when I was doing the bodybuilding. You know, we did urine testing, we did the lie detector test. We had nurses set up in a room. We did all that stuff, but it was more just about really teaching people how to, that they have fully control over what they're going to look like. And getting people to understand that. And when Body for Life came out and I was still running natural bodybuilding shows, I'm like, this whole thing, this guy is doing it right. Like he would say, this is real bodybuilding. And he'd show regular people just transform within like 12 weeks. He had such good marketing. I mean, I still have all this stuff, the pamphlets I saved. I was like, this is so good. Remember he did you had to enter to get the free VHS tape set to you.
I remember like when EAS launched, I mean, phosphagen was huge back then. It was like, you know, questionable back then, but it was amazing to see, you know, that first go around. I remember it was just a handful of winners, you know, that were on that first VHS, and then like it really exploded.
Right.
The amount of transformations that came out of Body for Life was incredible.
Yeah, like you're saying, like phosphagen was just creatine with a new name on it. So like he did that, and with his magazine Muscle Mania 2000 or Muscle Media 2000, it was very open about having like Dan Duchesne in there and talking about steroids and everything else. Like I went to Jersey one time, Strong and Shapely Gym, and listened to a Dan Duchesne seminar. I'm like, this guy's gonna kill people. So, you know, but then when it really switched gears and went into that, it wasn't even about like just natural bodybuilders, just regular people showing
Right.
what they can do in 6 weeks. So, you know, he has Body for Life book. But for me, that video was just great when him and his brother walked through Vegas, and they actually were, if you watch it, they were at a Musclemania shows where they were, but they were walking through the streets and just the cameras on them. And when they were in bodybuilding trunks, they were in the shorts like we have now with the male fitness model muscle, you know, and all that stuff that's going on. They were really, they hired all the best marketing people too. I mean, I went to marketing seminars with like Dan Kennedy and things, and they still talk about what was going on with the AS back in the day. I mean,
incredible.
All the best people were hired to write those. I mean, you remember you would open up a magazine and they'd have 8 pages of an ad that was more like an article that you're reading. And by the last year they did that, I mean, 1 million people participated in the transformation. So I pitched it and simplified it using the backdrop that Paul had to the shows. So kind of brushed it off a little bit. I sent him a PDF. I broke it all down. I created a PDF. I sent it to Paul. I said, these are the rules. Here's how to work. We'll have a couple different categories, sort of like Body for Life did, and it'll just go up on the stage. So I'd say a couple of years went by, and Paul called me up and goes, somebody pitched this transformation thing to me. I said, yeah, it was me. I could send you the PDF. I have it. Like, you know, but I think what he saw, especially with Instagram, is that people really reacted to these before and after pictures. So I think by the time he's, I pitched it in a thing that was a little bit before, I think he realized that before and after pictures really resonate with people, and they get a lot of likes and they get a lot of comments, and they're impactful. So, I told him a little bit about it. And again, at that point, I was the first show of the year in the calendar. So he goes, I don't think we should have a lot of rules though, so that was really on him, that he said, I really don't think it needs to be 12 weeks. I think they can use a picture from any time that they want to use a picture, and just see what happens. So my point was, very strict, more Body for Life, like more of that type of stuff. And his idea was more just not making it so much of a contest and just let anybody go up there who wants to be part of that. So, I did my marketing thing and just created, a little bit more of some opt-ins for that, and stories about what we're doing. And in 2015 was the first year we had transformation. And that was also the first year I was at Mohegan Sun for the casino there. And I have a graphic person that works for me. Her name's Pam. She used to work for Flex magazine for 22 years. So she helped me take that whole look of putting it in the back, like the poster, and putting the before pictures a little bit more, like we edit them. We not edit, but we make them all look similar.
Right.
Just to make it more professional, because some of the transformations I see at other shows, it's like they're using a PowerPoint presentation. It's just like there's a picture with white all behind it. So we make it very consistent with their name on it, and it's all matches the motif of the theme of the show. And we saw that the summaries were really hard. They were like 500-word summaries at the beginning. We had to break it more down to bullet points, because if the announcer is going to read it, it needs to be also read like in the first person type of thing. Like they write it in first person. Now we're reading it back like for them, and it just needs a lot of time in that. So what happened was, the first year we ran transformation, I believe we had 25 people in it. And
wow.
Yeah, it was
good.
It was good, and that's the only thing, is that the only negative piece you'd get from it, and then we would get standing ovations for people too. It was just really, really awesome.
It's incredible.
But you would always get that point of my story, my story, and we were very clear on the fact of like, hey, it's not a contest. We were the first ones that I had 5 trophies that had plates on. We ripped all the plates off. So it wasn't 1 through 5. It was just, we're doing recognition. So
right.
What happened from the first year we did it. The following year, I think we went up to 35 people. And then by the third year doing transformation is when a team, so what happened was the guy from the kickboxing gym contacted me. He was on my email list because I send out a lot of stories on my email and talking about things. He wrote me an email and said, hey, I own a kickboxing gym and I think I could put people in your show. It's okay. You're a kickboxing guy. I don't know how many people you put in, but I'm like, okay. But then he was like, no, I own a kickboxing franchise of over 100 studios all throughout this area. So we started talking and I go, you know, his name's Joe. And I said, I think you really should focus on this transformation because that really helps your business a lot more than trying to get a kickboxer to be a bikini contestant. So,
Yeah.
you know, and that's what we did. So that year they came in and the first year, I think they had 15 people. So it bumped our numbers up a lot. But then the following year, they went from 15 to 25. So that's what put us at this really large number for transformation because we're doing like 25 and they're doing 25. Now we have 50 people in transformation. And then, God, the best year I think was 2019 and or the year before COVID. And we had 85 contestants in transformation.
Wow.
That's amazing.
But that year I knew we were going to have to really fly through their stories and their bullet points because you have 85 people in a show that has 150 contestants because everything's on one night. That I brought in my video guy, Rocky, and we set up and we started doing interviews to get the stories because I was like, you know, these people aren't going to be so happy because it's not just a physical transformation. We talk about the mental fortitude of that as well. So that also inspires a lot of people who don't have a huge physical change to still be part of their team. So that's really what bumped that number. So when the kickboxing group went from 25 to 50, we really talked about mental fortitude and being part of this team and going to participate, even if they didn't see a lot of physical change. And it was just more like mental and just, you know, doing that. It made a huge difference. That was really, a lot of people I talk about with transformation. I tell them about the mental fortitude part of it and what that does to the group and how large it became that year. And some people don't, you know, they don't really agree with me. There was another guy running a transformation thing and he had a team going. I was telling him about mental fortitude and he was just so focused on like prizes, giving away like a surgery for like the skin, you know, like bringing a plastic surgeon in. And I'm like, you know, that's one way of going about it, but that's just
right. There's
a lot of ways.
There's a lot of ways to do, you know, but I think that component, because, you know, it really does go hand in hand with what we say. Because one of the things is always whatever inspired you to even consider it, right? You saw somebody on Instagram or Facebook and you saw their transformation. It's like there's steps, and whatever your starting point is, if that is the first step, if that is the introduction, and maybe you do want to be a bikini competitor or a figure competitor, it's like, but if the transformation division or the transformation night, right, is your stepping stone, like everything that goes into that is so critical because you don't wake up one day and then that first show, you're going to look like somebody who's done 10 shows, right? Your first show is never like that.
Yeah.
So transformation is such a great introduction to prepping, to being on stage, to being in front of the lights, to being in front of a crowd. It's such a great opportunity for so many people to do it, to even if that's their only experience.
Yeah, we say it all the time. Like, I feel like human beings' biggest fear is being judged. And that's literally what a show is. You're signing up to get judged, right? And the reason why we love the transformation category, and we explain this to our clients all the time, is it's an opportunity for you to set a really big goal and go through a transformation without the competition component, right? Like that moment becomes all about you. It's all about what you've achieved, how far you've come, you know, like you said, the mental
story, your journey.
You still get to get up there in a team, on stage under the lights, but you get to make it about your journey and your story. And it's not about anybody else, right? Versus a competition, obviously it's about everybody else that's on stage with you. And it's harder for you to think, because I think that should be the case either way. I think that the stage goal should literally be all about you versus you every time. Did I get better than my last? Did I prep better? Do I pose better? Did I get a better bikini? Does my physique look better? Even if it's a little bit, right? It's like, it should be that. But it does get clouded as you compete more and more, as you get pro card, because you do start to compete against other people. And to a point where you almost even forget that you're doing this for you. And I think the transformation category highlights that it's only about you and you're only doing it for you. And we've had so many of our girls do that and then even evolve from that, like he's saying. But you do it better than anybody, because it literally is mind-blowing, not only the amount of people, but the amount of transformations and the way that that story is told, you know, and it really does that category so much justice.
Yeah, there was a couple things, when I look at it, I knew that, you know, the pictures had to be, everybody's looking for their worst picture in transformation to try to put up there, and once in a while you get people, I have a worse picture, I want to use this one instead, and it's like, all right, take it easy. It's not really about the don't make it too competitive or you're going to miss the point. You're going to be upset. And that's the thing about competing, is there's the winner's happy and everybody else feels a little bit of disappointment. So with transformation, you want it to be all positive. So the year I had 85 people and it was combined as a division in the show, and we had to rush through it. I had all the videos taken, but it took my guy about a month to get them all out. So we had time to edit them and get through them all. So even though we were telling people like, hey, there were 85, everybody T-walked, everybody had their before picture, everybody, their stories were a little faster because they had to be. You couldn't spend a lot of time on them because your show is still 3-4 hours long. You're sitting there, you're like, so we started dropping the videos and putting those out. But I knew it would be so cool to be able to have those videos play on the screen before they walked out. I just didn't know how to do it, because when your show is that way and you have a Friday night meeting and a Saturday prelims and then a show, there's not enough time for him to film 85 videos, edit them, get them back to me so that we can have them all play on the backdrop as it's done. You could have people submit stuff, but it's not going to be the same quality all the way through. Like I've seen other shows where they say, hey, submit a video and we'll play the video in the back. They don't always play. There's so many things to that to make sure that video is going to be good. Or some people might have a better produced video or something on their own, but then they don't shoot out. They're going to shoot it one way in their camera like this or that way. It's just not going to be consistent. So I think the most professional way we can do it is bring in a real film crew to shoot all the videos so they're all consistent all the way through. And that's why we take their before pictures and put them in our graphic. And that's why we shoot the videos with one film guy to do it all. But doing it on Thursday gives them gives them more time to prep them. And then as we did that show, you see it took almost 3 hours to do the transformation show with the videos, to do it that style. So,
but that's exactly why we wanted to chat, because I know the competitors are not thinking about that. Right. The competitors go and all they're thinking about is like, this is taking long. This is like, you as a competitor, as coaches, right? And it's one of the most important things. It's like, as a competitor, you've got to realize that there's a lot that goes into putting together a show, right? This is your moment. This is your night. This is your weekend, 1,000%. But in order for that to happen, there are other things that need to flow. And the more somebody is understanding of all of that, the better experience they're going to have, because that it's not just about the one person. In order for you to have your moment, everybody has to have their moment. And in order for everybody to have their moment, the backstage stuff, the behind the scenes stuff needs time. And nobody ever stops to think about that.
Yeah, there's every year people ask, do I need to come to the meeting? Like, the meetings where we go over everything. If you're not there, it's going to
Here's my other thing. Like, where are you going? Like, you're literally here for this. This is what you're here to do.
They're prepped for 3 months and they go, I have to work that night. You had 3
Yeah.
months to do this. So
Where are you going?
yeah, it's just they don't want to be inconvenienced for that type of stuff. So, it's getting them to understand, like, hey, this is important that you show up for the meeting, because we're going to go over things, because we're running a live performance. It's a show and we need to go over everything with you.
Back to the experience.
Right. Well, back to the experience. Like, and honestly, like, that was one of the things that we loved about that weekend, because what we talk about all the time is making it a weekend experience.
Right.
We never talk about the moment on stage.
Yeah.
We talk
so
about
quick.
the weekend, right? It's a weekend for you. You've been prepping for 3 months, 6 months, a year, and this is the culmination of all of that work. So we are all about embracing and sucking up every minute of that weekend, right? And being at Mohegan Sun, like, literally from the moment we walked through the lobby, we were, at a destination.
I feel like I'm on a cruise.
Yeah, it was.
And we've been to, obviously, so many hotels in Vegas. And
Right, and
it's so
but
different.
it's so in line with what we preach, because it is about the weekend. Like, why are you skipping things? Why are you missing things?
Yeah.
Like, this is the culmination of all of this. You should want to be a part of everything. The weekend, the photos, the pictures, the videos, the show, you should want to be a part of all of it. This is the thing that you are, this is your hobby, right? This is the thing that you think about and talk about all year. And then here it is, and you want to skip stuff.
I tell my girls all the time, your show weekend experience starts the moment that you're packing your bag. You should have outfits that you're wearing either to the airport or on your drive. You should have outfits that you're wearing throughout the day. What outfit are you wearing after your tan? It's almost like if you did a girls' weekend to Napa, right? It's like you're gonna go to the wine tasting and you're gonna go do a massage and you're gonna it's a weekend for you. You prepped, you look your best, you're about to do something insanely out of your comfort zone. Like, you should be sucking up, like you said, every moment. It's a weekend experience. And people are like, all right, what time? I have tan at this time. It's like, what else are you doing?
Right, they're dreading all of it.
You get to do this right now.
Right.
Go ahead, because I know he wants to say something.
If I listened to people that told me how to run my show, it would be very different. If I listened to the people that told me the lights don't matter, there'd be no lights. Not even a spot. I go to some shows that don't even have a spotlight. They don't even turn off the lights that are the house lights. They're all on. If you listen to everybody, the only thing you'd get is a show that would crank out as many divisions as possible in as many first places as possible, to think that that's the only thing that matters for most people. Where the majority of your show are not the first place people. So it's, even in transformation, there's no first place. So it's like, you're just really getting people to really understand the experience and why they did it and all that stuff. So it's hard, because there are a lot of promoters that will just do a Saturday night show. You show up on Saturday or maybe Friday. Sometimes they have a Friday meeting. There's nothing going on Saturday except for like tanning and hair and makeup. And then all of a sudden there's a night show. There's no way you can do the judging as good as having a full prelims event, but prelims are not really a moneymaker. It's not like when we did natural bodybuilding, people showed up because they loved the prejudge. They go, that's where you see it. So you'd have a lot of people at prelims back in the day. Now you don't get as many people in prelims, but you can take so much more time to do the calculations of the scores that are broken down, so that at night, none of the judging is done at night. It's all done during the daytime. And for us, we're shooting Thursday night, we're shooting all those videos. And by Friday, we're able to have them all edited. I mean, he's editing all through the night to have those videos completed to play for the transformation event.
Wow.
And, some people, they say, like, well, if I'm in the open, why do I need to come Thursday? Why can't I just check in on Friday, or just show up on Saturday morning and do the show, And it's like, yeah, I mean, because we have to have a full meeting and we're running a show. So if we have 2 meetings just to split people up and make it a little bit more convenient, it just, we try to make that whole red carpet and the night of the meeting something special, so that people do feel like they're coming to it. There was a lot of times that we would have the meeting and it would sort of be rushed off, where we really weren't doing pictures like that. The pictures weren't set with the photographer. It was more, there's a backdrop with the logo on it. You can go take pictures at the step repeat if you want. So once we started doing the 3-day event, it was like, no, on Thursday, the photographer is going to sit there. He's going to get 2 or 3 pictures of every single contestant, and we're just going to walk through after the meeting and not before the meeting. So that helped make it more special to come into a meeting and then having people dress up, because people are like, why do I got to dress up? Well, first we want you to dress up so that we don't look like a bunch of slobs. And the people at the venue go, why are people in sandals and dark tans and craziness?
Yeah.
So, it's nicer when people are dressed up to come to their red carpet meeting, but then take the time afterwards to get them all lined and do a group photo.
Well,
and
I gotta say, I got 2 things that I need to say. And if you're a competitor or an aspiring competitor and you're listening or watching, number one, if you are skipping the meetings, don't also be the person that's got a million questions, right? Because you're also the ones like, where do I gotta go? What do I gotta do? What side do I come out of? It's like, all you had to do was show up and listen to the information, right? Because that's what the meeting is for, to explain what is going to happen. So don't skip things, because you are also the one that's lost, right? You're trying to go so fast that you're missing the part that's going to make you feel more comfortable. Because if you go to the meeting and you listen to how the event's going to run and what time things are going to happen and where you need to be, and you get to ask questions, you are going to sleep better that night. You're going to feel better the day of the show because you have all the information. And the other thing about the way that we do registration night, and she says it all the time, it's the kickoff to the weekend, right? When else do you get to dress up like that? Because short of going to a wedding, right? When are you getting dressed up that way to feel that good, looking and feeling your best, other than this event?
Right. Like, why is that an inconvenience?
Right. Like, come on.
Yeah. Well, I think it really helps too. I mean, at first when we would do these, again, Friday was sort of like we'd do our little registration and then we'd have a meeting fast, but we didn't spend that much time on making sure a photographer did all those step repeat photos. And I think once we had to split the show up into these days after COVID. So what happened is the show was in a giant ballroom. We were getting like 1,200 people to show up in the audience. It was a massive show. But I'd also, during the times of being at Mohegan, we stayed. I was never really a big fan of a ballroom style show because all the seats are flat. So if you're in the back, you're just looking over everybody's head. It will work out okay because we had IMAGs, like the big screens on the side as well. So you can look at those and see it. But the main thing was we used to do that because we pull all the chairs out on Sunday morning and have a fitness celebrity come in for a workout. So, and even when I did that, it was, there was 2 completely different crowds. So we would have Tony Horton the first couple of years I was at an old theater, but when we got to Mohegan, we had Shaun T, and we would get 1,200 people for the Shaun T workout the next day. So we'd pull all the chairs out and use my stage and lights and then have him do the insanity workout on stage. And
that's so cool.
It was so good. But a lot of, whether it was Tony Horton or Shaun T, a lot of the contestants they didn't know these people and they would follow them and they weren't anything they want to be around. So I'm like,
2 different worlds.
Yeah, really. It was so different. And, so when COVID stopped, we had to cancel the show one year and refund 153 people all their entry fees and give all the ticket money back. So, then we were shut down. Mohegan wouldn't do anything for 2 years. So, there were some shows that happened and people were doing with masks and all that other stuff. So we were finally able to come back and they go, things changed over there. And they said, we're not going to build that stage and rig the lights with you anymore. It's like when you go to a hotel and they won't come in and change your sheet, your towels and stuff anymore.
Right.
Mohegan's just like, we have a new contract. We're not going to build that stage and lights. So you got to find someone else to do that. That's a big part of me staying there is using the entertainment guys because they run the people that do my show do all the major concerts and all the equipment's already there. So it does cost me a lot, but it doesn't cost nearly as trucking in tractor trailers full of gear and rigging them to the ceiling of a ballroom.
Right.
So that's when we moved into the smaller theater now, which is which is nice because you have tiered seating, you have like couch style seats.
It was amazing.
You know, but I knew we couldn't pull that off in one day because the backstage would really only hold about 80 people or so, maybe, like a little jammed in there. So I knew like 75 people for transformation would be good, and 75 people for the WBFF, you know, the open show would be good, because I'd normally get 150. And you know, with 400 seats in there instead of 1,200. So it did change the style of the show, but that's what really made transformation its own day. So when we came back from that and moving it into that style of a venue, it was like, okay, well, let's just do it this way. So, you know, that's the thing about it. I really like the video, and then we did the pros, the same thing. So introducing the pros this year, I just felt the same thing. Like, if you can tell your story in 90 seconds, you know, it's a little longer because we ask questions and then we edit it down to 90 seconds to play. You know, it still makes you feel good, but like,
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
We love that. We love that component.
Yeah, we loved it. We love to see the pros there and to see everything, because you go from transformation to amateurs and to the pros, and it was just so complete, you know, in such a big yet cozy kind of like theater style audience with amazing lighting on the stage. Like, everything was just so incredible.
I gotta ask, like, all these years, right? Like, you know, back in the 90s, early 2000s, shows were so different. And now the way that shows are, what's something that you wish more people knew about, you know, your show specifically, that they're not asking or they're not thinking about?
you know, I always say that what we do with transformation is definitely has such a huge growth potential that enough people just don't know about it. You know, that's the one thing I think, you know, the way that like bikini has grown, transformation could definitely grow. We already know that it's there. We've seen it done with Body for Life. I don't know what it's going to take to get that kind of level of people, but I can see 100 people showing up. I mean, we had 85 at one point, you know, but I really think that could be the main event of something like this. It's just, how do you get transformation to people to do it? You know, they usually do it one time, and then sometimes the next year they'll go into the open class. But I think that's the biggest point of me trying to figure out is what do I need to do to get transformation to really stand on its own? You know, we have it at its own show now, which is nice, but it's like even bigger than that. I think the potential is so big, especially for people to be involved with sponsors. Or I really like the teams. You know, I feel like there's something, and you know, we do it with CKO kickboxing. You know, it's like they have their own division in it, and that's where I saw it as growing. I didn't see it as growing as like the Biggest Loser or, you know, the Biggest Weight Loss Challenge or anything like that, because it still brings too competitiveness to it. I saw it as more of like talking to you about the bodybuilder that just like promoted himself. That if you're CKO kickboxing, and from putting in a team of 20 people and having your own division and your logos in the background, and you have this kind of venue with $100,000, you know, it would have cost you $100,000 to put on this presentation, to have people with before and afters from your group have all that content. You have pictures, you have video, you have this incredible stage and venue that really doesn't cost you anything except getting a team of 20 people and being like, Brian, I want my own team. Can I have my logo up on the stage? Yes, you can. And if I had 5 teams of 20 people that know that, hey, this is not stress of putting them in a contest. They're not trying to get a pro card. They are going to get, you know, all of their red carpet pictures. They're going to be treated like stars. How do I get 5 or 10 or a gym chain to be like, we need to be a part of this? I don't understand. Yeah, and sometimes it's just presenting it, and then they look at a website and go, oh, it's a contest. That's not what we do. That's the thing about understanding about what it could be. And when people have that perception of looking at it and go, no, we don't want to be part of that. That's the contest part. They're not understanding, like, I just don't get it. And it's you know, a little frustrating me, because I'm just like thinking ahead about that. And like, if I had 10 gyms, different chains, different kind of fitness coaching people that wanted to be part of the transformation, to be like, I want my team of 20 people to come down. I'm going to get my logo there. I'm going to get this type of stuff. And I can use this to my business to really blow it up about getting people to do that. And if they do cross over, yeah, I'll show up on Saturday too, you know, but
Right.
yeah, it's just really, I don't understand. It's just,
I have to say something.
You're dying.
One of the things that I thought was so crazy was there were so many people there competing and watching, and it felt like everyone was from Connecticut or from that area, like, right, like just right up there. And I'll tell you, I was so pleasantly surprised with Connecticut, because it's never somewhere that I've ever wanted to go. Full transparency. I was never like, oh, I can't wait to go visit Connecticut someday. Like, you know, and that might be one of the reasons why I never
Shout out to
really-
Mystic, Connecticut.
Oh my God, all of it. Honestly, like we found like so many cool things. Mystic was amazing. We went to an anime store for my son. Mohegan Sun was amazing. We had the best sushi up there. Like it just has, it's a hidden freaking gem. And I would have never gone there in my lifetime otherwise, you know? And that's probably why I never made an effort before, because I'm like, who wants to go there? Let's go to LA, or let's go to New York, or let's go to all these other places. But I'll tell you, like, we will not miss that show, or we will not miss our yearly Connecticut like trip, because it's amazing. And I feel like I couldn't believe, first of all, that you filled that show that much with basically only local people. But I'm also like, if everybody else in this country like came to this, like they go to other shows, like they go to Vegas, like they go to LA, like they go to Miami, like they would be so pleasantly surprised. There isn't a shortage of people that are going through a transformation or that like to travel to shows. It's not like people are just going local anymore. And it's like, this is underrated by so much. Like people need to go here.
Right. And I'll tell you, like, just to piggyback on what you were saying, I think that the missing component is always the same, because everybody sees the stage stuff and they think it's about the stage. And one of the things that we are always saying, that it's about everything else, because all of our, you know, we coach moms and professionals and people that this is their hobby, but this translates into real life, because all of these people that do this, what are they wearing to their next event? How are they showing up to their date night? How are they showing up to all the things that they do in their regular life as a result of doing this? And that's really what we want to get the most out of. And I think that transformation division, or the transformation category, right? If people could see it for what it actually is, instead of just the stage, right? It just breeds so much room and so much opportunity for, because as coaches, I mean, we used to own a gym, and if there was an opportunity back when we owned the gym for us to promote a yearly thing where we could bring our members to do something like that, it would be a no-brainer for us.
yeah, there's a lot of gyms that do transformation challenges, and then there's no big
But
grant.
there's no ascension, right? There's nowhere to go.
No, and some of them would give out cash prizes or year memberships free or whatever else. And it's like, it's not really, like we said, just about people as normal contestants. How much do you get out of it? Like, are your pictures really that outstanding? I mean, you know, you're at a high school with a banner behind you, you know, like, is it that good to do
Nobody
that?
wants a cash prize. Everyone wants to feel beautiful and have attention. It is what it is. I don't care if you're shy. We all love that moment where you get to be that person for that moment, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, like it's yeah, that's, people ask me like, what do you see in the future? Where do you see yourself going with this? And I always say it's really about the transformation, and that, you know, getting enough teams to understand that, hey, this is really, I want my team to come. And you know, you get some of that stuff too. I've seen some shows say no more teams bringing outfits or anything like that, and I'm like, okay, to make people feel better or not be, the team's still there. Like their shirt doesn't say it, they're still the team. So
Yeah.
so you know, it's to me it's more about, no, if it's transformation, and you're not going to feel like there's any kind of politics behind it or anything like that. Like if the company gets like CKO, they get to put their logo up there, all their people come out, they do the group photos, everybody gets to tell their story. I make all these videos for them. They can share their videos on their platforms and show people. It just would give people more opportunity as trainers, as coaches, as gym owners, even supplement companies or
And
anything.
it's a win-win for everyone.
Everybody wins.
Everybody wins.
Yeah.
So when is the next Fitness Atlantic show?
We booked it it used to always be the last weekend in April. Then, depending on the venue and where I go, it was always the last weekend in April. And then, in April, we always have to watch out because Easter kind of bounces around. It moves. So I'm like, I never want to be on Easter weekend. Paul says it doesn't matter, but I'm like, I still don't want to do it.
He does say that.
So we are the 24th, 25th, and 26th of April.
Okay.
24th, 25th, 26th of April, 2025.
2025.
We will be there for
Hell
sure.
yes.
And where can people find you, Brian? Like website, social media handle?
Yeah, everything would be Fitness Atlantic. So fitnessatlantic.com or at Fitness Atlantic. If you want to look at the videos on Instagram or on YouTube, it's at Fitness Atlantic. There'll be a lot of videos of the past shows and things like that. Yeah, and then I always do a report too. So we'll be coming out with the new one. I mean, if they went now, there's an opt-in. You can get a pre-show report. The pre-show report always has the criteria, the divisions, the categories, links for any of the things that we offer. So you'll have a hotel link for the discount. They'd have the beauty services, so they could do the spray tanning, the hair and makeup, the photography packages. Everything is always linked right in this report that we put out. So they just opt in, they download the PDF, they don't read it, they still have the same questions. But then they get on the email list, and on the email list leading up to the show, I will sit down in the mornings and write a lot of emails, and most of the emails always have to do with, sticking to it, understand the journey, telling stories about people who quit too early and then they felt bad that they did it, just trying to be more motivating to people, understand that mindset. Some people, they appreciate it. And some people, no matter what you say, they just have that mindset of making it into a competition and not enjoying all the details and all the little things about it, and they'll jump in this show and then they won't like how they place, and then they'll go find a little show afterwards that has no prejudging. It has no like it doesn't have all the other parts about it that make it more special. So it's that to me is a little bit like kind of hurts a little bit because I'm like, but
you're missing the magic.
You're missing the magic.
Yeah, especially all those years I didn't have a pro division, right? So if they took a pro card, then they can't come back. So I'm like, oh, here's another one going. There's another one going. Another one going. So, it was nice, that we add the pros, and we'll see, because now they can just keep returning. They don't have to.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We're excited.
We are excited.
April
and
2025.
Again, for anybody watching, listening, it is a must-attend event. So you've got plenty of time to schedule time off, get yourself up to Connecticut. New York is around the corner if you want to drive in. There are so many ways to get there, and it is well worth coming to attend and watch. But if you are a competitor or
Plenty of
thinking
time
about
to
competing, there is plenty of time to prep, and it is quite the experience. So if you are looking to do something that's just a little bit bigger than whatever you're doing now, this is definitely one of the things that you should consider.
Yeah.
Brian, it was a pleasure talking to you. I didn't even realize how much time had gone by, but thank you for coming on the show. Again, we are big fans of everything that's happening up there, and we cannot wait to be back.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.